Hey, biology, miss you guys, and just wanted to put together a little video. Might be little, might be slightly long, you never know. But just kind of going through all of chapter 11, essentially summarizing what I pull out as important pages, paragraphs, words, concepts, and just kind of give all of that to you right here in one video that you could watch, rewatch it again, pause it, take notes, do all that stuff through this video. Another thing that I'm going to be sharing with you guys through Google Classroom is a big Google Slides presentation that covers all of Chapter 11. Okay, so Chapter 11, we're classifying life, and we're starting here. I'd recommend you have your book out with you, so maybe pause the video, get the book out. I'm starting on page 207. You should be too. All right. So I'm just going to start at the very beginning here. I'm telling you guys you're going to need to know about taxonomy, the science of classifying organisms, because that's kind of one of the basic levels and foundations that we're going to be going through in this chapter. So I'm flipping the page already, looking at page 208. Right at the top, I want you to know that the most common taxonomic system has 8 classification groups. Okay, 8 classification groups that you need to memorize all of these groups in order from domain all the way down to the most specific, intricate level here. And so one of the things that I did is I created a little way to help me memorize domain all the way down to species. So I came up with this little thing: did King Philip come over for good spaghetti? There's all 8 right there. So domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, all in that order. And basically what I did is I have the word that starts with the same letter as the actual level of classification. Okay? Domain is the most basic. This is like, as the book's going to put out there on page 208, you're going to have eukarya, you're going to have prokaryotes. These are words that might mean nothing to you now, but eukaryotes, that's going to be like your plants and animals, a little bit higher level classification. Prokaryotes, that's going to be like your bacteria, your lower level. Single-celled organisms, it's going to be things with bacteria that maybe they don't have what's called a nuclear envelope. So a nuclear envelope is something that encapsulates the nucleus of a cell, but eukaryotes do have a nuclear envelope. Okay, eukaryotes, again, plants and animals, a lot more detail there going into that organism. So yeah, like I said, I know a lot's coming at you. Pause it, rewind it, do everything you need to do to help you benefit from this video. When you flip the page onto 209, you're going to see a lot of information here. I just want you to know a little bit about all of those. All right, so I'm not saying that you need to know every little detail, but pick out a vital piece of info from every single one of those different levels. Archaea, very, very basic. Bacteria, still basic, but slightly above archaea. Eukaryotes, like I said, now we're getting into a little bit more bigger organisms. And then you keep going into something like plants, plantae, and animals, animalia, all of that right there. Just a little bit from each one. Okay, let's flip the page here, looking at 210. One thing that I highlighted at the top of 210, it says no system of taxonomy is perfect. You got to understand that every scientist that updates it realizes that they will then be bested by another scientist later on because there's more technology and there's more vital information always coming out. The goal of taxonomy is simply to develop a workable model with categories that fit the creatures that we observe in the world, and it helps us better understand them and to manage the category that they should be put into. Okay, so that's something I put in there. That's the 3rd paragraph down on page 210. The next thing under the main category species, it's basically a little note that I said that whole first paragraph under species, it's just one way to define species. Then the 2nd paragraph down, again, under species, it's a totally different way to define species. And then the last paragraph on page 210 just summarizes the 2 different conceptual ways of defining species. Okay? All right, so when we flip it, I'm on page 211 now. I want to make sure that you understand that there is a very special way of naming every organism, and it's called binomial nomenclature. It's a bold word on 211, and you need to know that Linnaeus was the Swedish scientist in 1735 that came up with this binomial nomenclature. One thing I'm going to write out for you here on the board. All right, binomial, and let's see. Binomial, what we're doing here is we're going to break it up into two different parts, okay? Bi standing for two, and nomial basically just meaning name, okay? So a lot of what you're learning early on in science, it's all Latin-based words, okay? And binomial is a Latin-based word, bi, to, nomial, name, and then nomenclature. That's basically like a fancy way of saying naming system, okay? So we have a two-name naming system. That's how you would break down the word binomial nomenclature, okay? Another special thing about Latin is that basically it's a dead language, all right? It's not really being used, it's not being updated. So if you give a special category a name in Latin, you know it's not going to change later on. So scientists for decades, for centuries, can still use the same words because they won't change. Okay? All right, so let's turn the page. Go into 212, all right? So again, our binomial nomenclature, if there's two names, then we got to know what are those two names coming from. They're coming from the genus and the species. So in binomial nomenclature, the first word is the genus of the organism. The second word is the species of the organism. And the next thing I have is that you should always capitalize the genus and lowercase the species. So the two words, when put together, are the proper scientific name of the species. Okay, so for us, Homo sapien. All right, so those two words give you the genus and the species of a human being, and the first word should be capital, the second word should be lowercase. Put them together, that's the scientific name of the organism. Okay, that summarizes all of 11a. Let's flip it and take a look at 11b. These are some quick words that you're going to have to know. Write down their definitions. Systematics, there's one. Phylogeny, that's another one, that's in blue. And cladistics, that's another one in blue that you're going to have to make sure you write down those definitions. And if you're looking at page 213, the second and third paragraphs are the most important on that page. Okay? All right, flip it. We got a lot of information here discussed on page 214. Kind of goes in this backstory talking about Darwin, and he did the whole Origin of the Species book. You just learned a lot about him when we were talking about clashing worldviews, okay? One main thing that he brought up is called the phylogenetic tree. And so I'm in that first paragraph right there, and I underlined a lot of that first paragraph. So Darwin felt it wasn't enough to just sort and group living things into taxa or small groups. He felt that you needed to further go and group them according to an evolutionary history. You're going to look at this tree right here on the middle of page 214, and there's a whole mess of things that we would find wrong with it. For starters, a common ancestor, and then you're going to see these tiny little dots. All right, we'll get to the dots in just a second. But the second paragraph I want you to know about are the clades. All right, clades being branches of a phylogenetic tree that include all descendants from what he calls an evolutionary ancestor. So again, we find a lot wrong with this. We find that the whole idea of evolution is saying you have one common ancestor, and then all of a sudden, this tree gets blown out with all these different organisms that seemingly connect when it's a mess of not true information, okay? Not true information saying that you're going to have a seal somehow connect with a tiger. And we're saying, yeah, they're all animals, but that seal does not magically develop legs and grow on to become a tiger. So, of course, we're finding a lot wrong with this, but we are able to learn about the organism. And just learning about the organism itself is all we really care about here. So let's go down to the bottom of the page 214, the dots. Now we're getting to things called divergence, which you have to know about, and then moving into a derived trait. Okay? There's a whole lot of things where it says the example Clade suggests that the ability to live in water is a derived trait, leading to then a brand new type of animal like a whale and a dolphin. That's just a little bit right there that you're going to have to write down. Okay, let's flip the page, and you're going to also have to know about convergence, top of page 215. And then what I did is I just put a little note off to the side where it says genetics and classification. It's a bold part right in the middle of page 215 that I thought was a crazy example of what is being done in today's scientific world. So take a read to that, write down some of that info. Bottom of page 215, baraminology. That's a word that you're going to have to understand. It's italicized, so it's not a bold word, so I want to pull that out and make sure you know that will be something you have to get. All right, let's flip the page. At the bottom of 216, the last two paragraphs on that page, I want you to read and take notes from. And then if you flip the page on 217, the top paragraph there, I want you to read and take notes from that as well. Okay? I know that was just kind of like a buckshot of information going at you guys, but I want you to slow this video down, rewatch it, take notes going through this chapter. Like I said, I'm going to give you a whole Google slide presentation that I'm going to share that goes through everything too. Please watch these videos. They're helpful. And if questions come up to you while you're watching these videos, write them down. Keep watching, finish the video, and then please send those questions my way. I can help you guys and get you through this chapter together. All right, again, love you guys, miss you guys, and hope you're doing well.